Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reason Choice Media.
Welcome home to the native, landing on a podcast space destined for greatness. 60 minutes or so hit, not too long for the grave shit. High level combo, politics in a way that you can taste it, then digest it. Politics touches you even if you don't touch it, so get invested. Cross the T's and dot the I's, Gillum back to get 'em, stand on business with Rye. You could have been anywhere, but you chose us. Native Land Podcast, the brand that you can trust. Yes.
Welcome home, y'all. This is episode 19 of Native Land Pod, where we give it to you straight, no chaser. I am your co-host for today, Tiffany Cross, Andrew Gillum, and Angela Rye. I didn't mean to say for today.
You're
I
just meant
I'm
every day.
You're co-host every day.
You're welcome home every day, Tiff.
Yes. This week, will we see a black woman in the Senate? That is the question we have, and we're going to get to that answer later in the show. And listen, it's too many surrogates out there not willing to commit to accepting election results this year. And everybody's treating it like it's a joke, but we ain't laughing. So we're going to talk about that. Then, okay, y'all have asked and we have answered. We got to talk about FAMU. And you know, I don't have a lot to say. We going to toss that one to Mr. Andrew Gillum, the king of Orange and Green himself. Because we want to know what is up with this $237 million donation in question mark. Don't go anywhere because we get into it.
I tell you, the haters are out.
237
Don't go anywhere
cents.
because we're getting to that. Also, are y'all watching these playoffs? Because I got so much to say about it. And I know that's why you tune in for my sports take. So we're going to get into that. And let me say, welcome to the W. We'll tell you what that means later if you don't already know. But before we get into what's cracking this week, I just want to throw it back real quick because I have a theory that ain't nothing new under the sun. So if you're watching this fresh off the presses, we're going to take it to a throwback Thursday. On May 18th in 1896, SCOTUS ruled separate but equal in Plessy v. Ferguson. Landmark case. We're still fighting that same battle in a lot of ways. Also, it was on this very day, if you're listening Thursday, May 17th in 1973, that the televised Watergate hearings began. Who knew a whole 51 years later it would be a complete circus act still going on across all of our screens? And on this day, on May 17th, 1954, a full 70 years ago today, the United States Supreme Court handed down a unanimous decision in Brown v. Board. That is the decision that outlawed racial segregation in public schools. I have some thoughts on that, but we don't even have time to get into it.
Mini pod.
Well, yeah. Can we do a mini pod on that? Because I think that's an interesting. Okay, good. So stay tuned. We might have a mini pod coming up for you. Now that we throwing it back, let's press it forward. Nick, make it like we're in a Freak Nick documentary and drop that bass.
Can you twerk though?
Okay.
We have a really important announcement. A lot of you all have been asking us where we're going to go, when does our live tour start, and we have breaking news here. You're hearing it here first. We're starting a live tour, but sadly, even though we always welcome you home, you can't necessarily be welcome home to this particular live show. It is a private conference. Our friend Kim Blackwell is hosting Accelerate Her, which we are elated to be participating in. We are going to do a town hall talk and make that our Native Land podcast for next week. So you will be welcome home into the podcast at our regularly scheduled time with the audio and the video. So you'll be able to hear more then. And we also want you to know that as we start building out our dates for our live tour, that there are sponsorship opportunities, partnership opportunities for you to align with Native Land because we want to welcome you home in that way too. There will be more details about that on our social media as well as on our episode description, which I know many of you all do a full deep dive and read those every week. So make sure you do that. And that's that on that. Are y'all excited to be in Miami?
I'm excited to get on the road. Yeah.
Miami's
I like
our first
being
stop.
with you guys. I like being with you guys in person. As you know, we have a good time. I think we should have cameras following us all the time because even when we're not on the podcast, we have the most interesting conversation. We laugh. We have fun. We have good food all the time.
I still have some bad behind the scenes from New York,
have
y'all.
some too.
I need
Me
to
too.
post.
What are we going to do with all this behind the scenes footage?
Tiff, I don't know.
You know
You
my
have
thoughts.
grand plans and we have limited time, but we shall see.
Tiff, you may want to see what I have first. Just saying. Caught you in some rare moments, friend.
Fine. Fair enough. Fair enough.
It sounds like
No
bribery footage.
Hey,
I don't approve my likeness being seen without looking at it.
Tiff
Talk to
said,
AI about
Andrew,
that.
I was just about to say, Tiff said it's AI. It's
Yeah.
AI. That,
AI
if you
about
see
that.
anything bad, it is not me, it's
Plausible
AI.
deniability. True.
Exactly. Let's get into the show, you guys. Y'all know I hate talking about Trump. So, but here's everything going on, and y'all tell me what you want to talk about.
It's happening.
I know. We have to talk about it, but I will tell y'all everything going on. Y'all tell me what you want to talk about. So the trial is still going on. Yeah. Our friend Don Lemon was name checked. Michael Cohen testified. Then Donald Trump and Joe Biden have agreed to a debate. So that's happening. And then we have these surrogates who won't commit to accepting the election results no matter who wins this year. Whoever want to jump in on any of this, go for it.
What you got, Angela? You into it?
See, y'all not even into it.
No, I there is something I'm interested in, because it's not just the agreeing to of the debate, right? This Joe Biden, Mr. Institutionalist, Mr. Believes in right and in order, and I don't disagree with him, decided that he was going to reject the invitation of the Presidential Debate Commission. I'm not sure what the historical record is on candidates for president. Certainly the incumbent president saying to the Commission on Presidential Debates that we will not participate in any of your debates. But that's what he communicated to the commission, basically saying, one, y'all lost control over it the last time. The rules were broken that were agreed to by both parties, and Donald Trump drove a Mack truck right through it. But also, the Presidential Debate Commission has rules that permit the possible entry of Kennedy onto the stage. And both he and Trump can agree on one thing unanimously, and that is they do not want Joe Kennedy on a stage with either of them. They like to pretend that he doesn't exist at all.
Joe. That's not
RFK.
I'm sorry, RFK.
We know
Robert F.
Yeah.
Robert F.
I just want to make sure don't nobody drag my brother.
Joe is daddy. I'm so sorry. Joe is daddy. Daddy Kennedy.
I don't know that presidential debates matter as much anymore, to be honest with you, Andrew. I do like that they said no audience, because I think, it's become such, kabuki theater. And it's like, we don't need to hear the cheering back and forth. Everybody, crowds the room with their candidates. I don't know that there are really undecided voters out there that this will make a difference. Angela, I know you feel
I don't disagree.
A way. We've all talked about, like, it's a choice between Biden and the couch. Do you think this debate has any influence on who's going to show up? And I'm curious if you think these trials have any influence over the election.
Can I hijack just a moment of this to say, can we please play Joe Biden's clip from Twitter?
Andrew asked for that sound, and I was like, I think it's boring.
I sent it to you.
We have it too.
No.
We have it ready to go. If we have it.
Donald Trump lost 2 debates to me in 2020. And since then, he hadn't shown up for debate. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal. I'll even do it twice. So let's pick the dates, Donald. I hear you're free on Wednesdays.
Shade.
Make my day, pal.
No, congratulate the man on spitting out a little light shade. I like the Wednesday reference. And for y'all who don't know, that's because the judge in Trump's New York trial, hush money trial, does not hold court on Wednesdays. He takes care of other pieces of his docket. And so Joe Biden was throwing some shade, basically like,
executive
I hear
time
you free on
Wednesday.
Wednesdays.
This is executive
Let's get
time.
together.
All I know is the name of this podcast needs to be Make My Day, pal.
Oh, Fred.
Oh, God.
Oh, Fred.
I love it.
I appreciated the light shade, by the way, because I think Joe Biden was
throw light
underestimated going into the State of the Union, and I think the man showed up. And I think he better than showed up. And then I'll just say, I think that
You did? Did we talk about this?
We never debriefed that, which, by the way, we got some feedback from listeners like, y'all asked us what we wanted to hear, all this kind of stuff, and y'all never talked about, what happened there. But I think he overperformed what were expectations. Sleepy Joe, he ain't going to show up, and I think he overperformed
I agree with that.
his
And we did talk
expectations.
about
He
that.
sounded
We did talk
angry.
about.
As he should be.
I didn't
As it should be.
It's fine. We don't have to revisit State of the Union. I guess my thing here is I appreciate that they want to have a debate or two. I want to know what they're going to talk about. I wish that some of the covers that I saw this morning even talked about what they would talk about, not just this challenge. I think, Tiff, normally, this is your normal frame. It's just like this battle royale culture that we're in doesn't strive to get to the heart of issues. It really just strives to focus on the tension. And from my vantage point, I do want to see a debate on the issues, but I don't think they could, at least one half of this debate can't really go toe to toe on issues. They just make stuff up.
Yeah.
I appreciated Joe Biden saying the Presidential Commission on Debate shouldn't be involved. And it's the one thing that I've been saying since 2016, which is how do you invite a commission in to debates, or the commission sets the rules and says the moderator does not have to fact check you. That should be almost the sole responsibility of the moderator.
Yeah.
I couldn't disagree with that more. And so I appreciate if they would just go a step further and say the reason we don't want the Presidential Commission on Debates here is because they don't serve any purpose besides asking questions. The networks can do that themselves, and we are inviting the networks in to fact check the things that are saying. Since this isn't theater, we want to make sure that this is something that folks can actually go back home and count on. Your votes are worthy of knowing the facts. And I think the debates provide that type of opportunity. I actually would prefer a crowd and audience. Andrew, I mean, you were on the stage, but I like to brag that I was on his debate prep team. And one of the things that I remember is being in the audience when Andrew debated and seeing him feed off of the energy. I actually think it's really an important factor. I would like to hear what you say, sir, on this. But that's the only pushback I'd offer on not having
and I actually think that Joe Biden should not be afraid of that, because I actually think he's a person who gets energy from people.
That's right.
When you saw him at the State of the Union, his exchanges, like real time, in the moment, he was almost like, bring it, I'm ready. I'm agile, I can respond. The only other thing I mentioned on this, Tiff, which is, I think, going to be different than how we've seen this before, is the first debate has been set for June 27th. This is probably going to be the earliest general election debate anybody remembers if it ever existed before. And I think Biden is smart to get this on the record as early as he can. That way, if there are tragic mistakes, there's enough time to rebound, that we're not sitting on the eve of the election trying to correct, error. Now, by the way, that works both ways. But I think that Biden's campaign and the president himself are betting on the fact that the more time people get to see the contrast between these two candidates, the choice, that they're going to be reminded of what and who Donald Trump is, what he gave us for 4 years, the headache that we lived with, versus what stable, steady, agile leadership from a man who, frankly, I think too many people have counted down and out. And I think he will come alive in those spaces and will probably be the general benefactor of it.
I hear you guys on the energy of the candidate, but I'm thinking of the viewers at home. And I just don't know how that constant applause and eruption, like, you want to hear what is your political standpoint. And I just find it hard to believe that people don't really know that. I wonder how many people actually tune into the debate. As we've seen, the numbers of State of the Union viewership has gone down. Yeah, this is the middle of the summer.
It is still the highest of any political event.
This is true. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have it. I just don't know that it will sway voters either way. I don't know what the benefit is. And I wonder who benefits from it more. I would tend to say Joe Biden. I
tend to say the networks, whoever is able to air it.
Good point.
I would say if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. There's going to be a debate, and they're all going to be betting on it. And I think, to the point, Tiff, I think that people are used to live sporting events. They're used to applause. They're used to noise. They're used to noise on social media. They'll be fine with whoever's making noise in the audience. But I think that they need something, because the campaign in and of itself is not generating a whole lot of excitement. I think there's interest, especially for people who already have a natural political bent and interest. But folks who are on the margins, I don't think that they're paying attention. So maybe this is a way to get them interested.
I think they got to be everywhere all the time.
I agree.
Yeah.
Nobody is in one place.
Not enough interest, I'd argue. This is something that interests me. I want to shift us a little bit. But before we go, I just want you guys to hear, because no matter what happens in this debate, it will impact the next steps on the campaign trail and eventually the election. And there will be a winner and a loser come November. And if as I think sometimes our rules in society are like pixie dust, like we have to depend that everybody else agrees to participate in these rules, these social norms and mores. Right. We agree to stop at stop signs. We agree to stop at red lights. The MAGA party is really desperate to disrupt that. And I would argue institute chaos. Take a listen to Senator Tim Scott, who was on Meet the Press, and Elise Stefanik, who was also on Meet the Press. These were at different times, but listen to them when they are asked directly about accepting election results in 2024. Take a listen.
Senator, will you commit to accepting the election results of 2024? Bottom line.
Well, at the end of the day, The 47th president of the United States will be President Donald Trump, and I'm excited to get back to low inflation, low unemployment.
Wait, Senator, yes or no? Yes or no? Will you accept the election results of 2024 no matter who wins?
That is my statement.
Just to be very clear, I don't hear you committed to certifying the election results. Will you only commit to certify the results if former President Trump wins? Does that mean if former President Trump wins?
No, it means if they are constitutional.
Okay, so you just heard two of his surrogates say they hedged on accepting election results, and people are treating this like a joke. And I think this is setting the stage for more political violence. And while, again, these networks are outside the courtroom and playing, kabuki theater and looking at courtroom drawings, we're not talking about little incidents of violence. There was a man who declared war on the CIA building. I think this was in 2021, maybe 2022, the summer of 2022. So all these pockets of violence are popping up. It makes me concerned. If y'all don't have nothing on that, we can move on. But I think
they're just saying what they're already doing, right? I mean, after they have basically tried to convince all of us that January 6th never occurred, and that if it did occur in your minds, don't believe your lying eyes. It was a peaceful gathering of citizens making petition of their government. There was nothing wrong with that. Not that anybody died. Not that they were chanting Mike Pence. Not that they were running through the Capitol looking for Nancy Pelosi, trying to kill her. I mean, so ignore all of that. And from Stefanik to Tim Scott, and my God, I soul snatched. I mean, if he ever had one, because I didn't know him prior to seeing him on the national stage. But talk about a soul snatched. And the same thing for Elise Stefanik, who was supposedly touted as this reasonable New York Republican, somebody that could be worked with, until she set eyes on Donald Trump and got, seduced into playing this supporting role in chaos / kabuki theater, as you already mentioned. But I'm not surprised by these folks. I think we should very much so.
What is kabuki theater? I'm sorry. Talk to me like I don't get it. I don't. What is kabuki theater?
Essentially, it is a sideshow. It is
display. It's a circus act.
It's a circus. Yes, it's all of that. It's not real. And right now, these people, unfortunately, the only thing real about them is that they're in real positions of influence. But aside from that, they're not operating in reality. They exist in an alternative universe. You saw the lineup the other day outside of the Trump trial. Basically, all these guys who want to be his vice president auditioning for the position by going out and slamming the judge's daughter. Why don't you take some time and slam Justice Clarence Thomas's wife, right?
They can't. They're aligned with her.
Of course.
But I guess
this judge is corrupted because his daughter gives to Democrats or has helped Democrats. But Clarence Thomas, his wife, conspires to overthrow the government, and this man doesn't excuse himself from any trial related to it.
I'm actually glad you brought up Clarence Thomas because, Angela, I think you wanted to get in here. I wanted to bring in our viewer. We have a viewer with the question is, Angela, you want to weigh in now or you want to wait till later? I got something
for Tim Scott and Clarence.
Go for it.
Please.
You remember this? You know what this is?
The Shining?
For our viewers who are listening and not watching, Angela is flashing her cell phone lights into the camera. And
Get out.
Know what that means.
Get out. I was like, what, The Shining?
Please.
No, Andrew.
Yes, I just said snow
He's back.
soul snatcher.
Andrew gonna get these cultural cues today. I didn't know what kabuki theater was, so welcome home, AG. We're gonna figure it out together. Yes, let's listen to the viewer question.
Good day, native land. This is Valentine from Hyattsville, Georgia. So, why is it that we as voters can't vote for these justices, the Supreme Court justices, or any justices or judges that the president appoint in office? Because I do believe that we should be able to vote for any person that is in leadership position. I do believe we should be the one that put them in office. So please tell me what you think. Thank you.
That's all right.
First of all, I love Valentine. I love Valentine.
Thank you for listening, and thank you for that question, Mr. Valentine. Well, I just want to correct him a little before we weigh in on what he said. You actually can vote for justices. Some states, that's exactly how.
Well, he said that the president appoints.
Yes, so I understand the difference, but I just want to let our viewers know, if you don't want to just explain. In some states, judges are chosen just like any other government position. They're elected. In some states, it's partisan. and some it's not partisan. That means that, it's not party affiliated, that you can actually vote for them. Some states mirror the federal government's role, which Angela and Andrew will get into, where they might have a nominating committee and nominate 3 judges, and the governor is a part of that. In some states, the governor selects judges from a commission. So there are a lot of ways that you become a judge. But to your point, when it gets to the federal appointment process, Angela and Andrew, I'm sure, have a lot to say about that.
Angela?
I will be brief. Our normal policy is one person answers.
No, but this one I think is worth a discussion. That's why.
I see. Okay, I missed that part. My bad. I'm missing context cues now. I think that he raises something that's a really valuable point of discussion right now, and that is, I think, the significance of our vote. When you see yourself not represented in places of power, you naturally want to ensure that your voice is heard. I think typically you would expect that the individual that you did vote for could appoint someone that is aligned with your interests or theirs. And they're so much aligned that there's not going to be a whole lot of light between the two positions. I would love for Valentine to take on a campaign where he's like, from now on, hell, now we voting for these Supreme Court justices because I don't know what they out here doing. And then while we're at it, maybe it doesn't need to be a lifetime appointment because y'all in here not breaking ethics rules back, forth, and everything in between. Not y'all, Clarence mostly. But, we really could put some more parameters on that and ensure greater accountability. So I like where he's going. And I think that if our folks, the American people writ large, felt like they could take on the system and change it, people would be more engaged overall, which is, I think, where we were going even with the debate conversation. So, yes, there are some judges that can be voted in. Many are appointed. There are a lot of public officials that are appointed generally at every level of government. But I think there is something to be said about having your voice heard at every level. It would be dope to see some national Supreme Court justices on ballots instead of what we got right now.
Or retention votes like you have in many states for the Supreme Courts, the highest courts in the land. In many states, the citizens, if they don't elect them directly, they get to vote to retain them or not to retain them. And if you don't meet the retention threshold, you're out of there. God knows if Clarence Thomas were on a ballot and we had the choice of whether or not to retain him or not, I guarantee we would have thrown that dude off. But the truth is, and Tiff, you talk about this often, and I appreciate you beating this horse, to death. And that is the difference between how conservatives, the Republicans, approach appointments to the federal bench and how Democrats seem to approach the appointments. I mean, this is why I think he will go down in history as the most powerful law-breaking member of the United States Senate, Mitch McConnell, the current Republican leader who stole a Supreme Court justice seat from Barack Obama. And that's just the one we know about. But dozens to hundreds of appointments of federal judges that they just sat on because they didn't believe that a Democrat should be able to appoint these individuals to lifetime appointments. Yet, in Trump's case, months before the election, he can fill every seat, every vacancy that comes up. And there, full stop, no hesitation. I will say this is why I think the Senate and who's in the Senate matters so much. Yes. The United States Senate has the role of advise and consent of the presidential appointments, and it shows up in no greater place than when it comes to the confirmation, the advise and consent process for judicial nominees, not just the Supreme Court, but the entire federal bench.
Yep.
And the way they have muscled this thing of late is essentially to block all Democratic president's appointments. Slow, drag your feet, require all kind of hurdles and maneuvers to get through and pass the rules. And Tiff and Angela, what this takes us to is, frankly, last night's, this week's primary elections that occurred across a number of states that could yield some differences.
Perfect segue, Andrew. Before we get into that, I just want to say really quickly that you brought up Donald Trump, Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump. During Donald Trump's one term, so think about this in terms if he got a second term, his one term, he nominated 234 mostly white, mostly male judges to lifetime appointments. So we get seduced by the Supreme Court, and we forget about actions that take place at the lower courts as well. And in the lower courts, Black women, we were excited about seeing Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson confirm confirmed to the Supreme Court, but Black women are grossly underrepresented in lower courts. And to your point, Andrew, that is why there needs to be a Black woman in the Senate. We're going to take a quick...
since I know you're going to throw, but since you brought up Donald Trump's appointments, Eileen Cannon, as Angela pointed out in the last episode, a Donald Trump appointment. And then how many justices on the U.S. Supreme Court appointed by this president are now reviewing whether or not this man gets to be immune? It's unbelievable.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about the role of the Senate and why there needs to be a Black woman in the Senate. There have only been 3 so far. We're going to take a quick break. And on the other side of this break, we're going to get into that. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
You have had me at your dinner tables. You have believed. And I thank you so much. And together, tonight, we have made history. We have made history, and we have done so while overcoming steep odds. So for anyone, hear me, who has ever felt counted out, overlooked, and underestimated, I hope you understand and share this moment and know. I hope you know that the impossible is still possible. How many of you know the impossible is still possible? And I am fully aware, and I know that you all as well, that stories like mine don't generally make it to the United States Senate.
Listen to this. Of more than 2,000 people who've served in the United States Senate, only 3 have been Black women, and none of those 3 served at the same time. So you had Carol Moseley Braun, I think she was the first one, Vice President Kamala Harris, and then LaFonza Butler, who was appointed by Governor Gavin Newsom in California. This week, Angela Alsobrooks won the Democratic primary for senator in Maryland. So our chances are looking good at having a Black woman in the Senate. There's also Lisa Blunt Rochester, who's running in Delaware. Angela, Andrew, you and I, all of us have talked about this. Angela and I are in a group chat with our lady friends, and Andrew, our group chat that we all have together. We've talked about Black women in the Senate. We've dissected these races ad nauseum. Yeah. I'm curious. Angela, you and I have talked a lot about this. Yes. I've asked your opinion a lot. I was like, do you think Alsobrooks is going to win this election? Curious your whole thoughts about Black women in the Senate, but also curious your thought about Angela Alsobrooks.
I want to congratulate Angela Alsobrooks on her win. There are some things that I wish that she would have done, and maybe what I was recommending would have backfired. I thought that she should have confronted David Trone saying jigaboo in a congressional hearing.
Can you tell us that story?
Briefly, if you just Google David Trone jigaboo, you'll see that he says jigaboo. He claims he meant to say bugaboo in a committee hearing in the House. And right after that, a number of CBC members who are his current colleagues came out to endorse Angela Alsobrooks in the race. He said some other things that were disparaging along the way, spent a lot of money. I think there's an actual very
61 million.
Wow.
There's a very interesting case study to be held on when resources matter in states and when they really don't. And I think that this is one of those really interesting case studies where money did not win you the race. And so I think that the party actually also has to do a deep dive on when and how they spend resources, because we've been taught in politics that if you throw money at a thing that you will win, and that is not always the case. So I think there's a remarkable case study here on this. But I congratulate Angela Alsobrooks.
Congrats to her. I have to say, I was looking to hear from her. I think our sister friend Joy Reid has one of those platforms where if you are she speaks to everybody, but particularly she has a strong army of Black women who tune into her. And I kept looking to see Angela Alsobrooks because I thought that conversation would be a good exchange. And I have to say, I was disappointed I didn't see her there. And so often, I don't know if this is the case because I wasn't talking to her campaign and dealing with them, but so often we will hire white consultants, white people handling our comms, and they will put you in places like, honestly, I don't know anybody who watches the Sunday morning talk shows that much anymore who look like us, you know, of our type of people who, and I don't mean even just Black folks. I mean, like, you know, on the younger side and, you know, people who are somewhat aware. I've never heard somebody say, oh my gosh, I got to go because Meet the Press is on. And sometimes they have a habit of putting people in traditional places. So I hope to see Angela Alsobrooks now that the primary is over and she's in the general facing Republican Larry Hogan, who we don't have a lot of nice things to say about. He is still the party of Donald Trump. I hope to see her on that platform.
Yeah,
Andrew, what you think?
Well, it's a serious general election, right? I mean, Hogan won a governor's race in a Democratic, for all intent and purpose, Maryland is considered a solidly blue Democratic state. I will tell you, if there is to be a state that would produce a black U.S. senator, Maryland is cut out of the mold is cut out from that state. It has a high, I think probably a plurality of black voters in its Democratic primary. It's probably, to your point, Angela, where one of the reasons why money didn't get to have the kind of outsized impact that it might normally have. I had a similar situation in my race in Florida, terribly outspent in the primary. We just needed enough for people to know my name and that I was a candidate on the ballot. I think I was impressed to see that Democratic nominee also Brooks, I think as of time of recording, had 243,000 votes in her column compared to former Governor Hogan, who had 147,000. And again, he only, there were two competitive primaries, both on the Democratic and the Republican side, and she beasted on the numbers. And if they're able to replicate that without, really many forced errors heading into November, I think it'll be a good look. I will say in her speech last night, I think, and I know we've got some sound, and I'm not sure if this will be included, but, there was a lot of time spent on sort of safety, crime. I think that's kind of this pull page from the Democratic playbook on these statewide races. Mm-hmm. And I would just caution the double-edged sword when talking about that, particularly for her as a former prosecutor. Exactly. In a state like Maryland, with a city like Baltimore that has had consent decrees passed down against, their law enforcement agencies and the collusion between them and their prosecutors. Yeah. Up until the point of, by the way, Marilyn Mosby, where that formal handoff was really disrupted. And she said accountability has to apply to everybody, and went after law enforcement officers who themselves were breaking the law. So I would just, I caution on that you don't try so hard to get to the right that you stumble over, step over, break the necks of the folks who brought you to the party, trying to get to the prom, and you fall short. So I'm wishing her well. And let's hear the sound.
And thinking about what's on the line in this election, I hear the stories of those I've had the privilege of meeting all across our state, seniors like my father, who thought that they would retire but are back at work to cover the cost of medication and groceries. Young families who find new ways to stretch $1 each month so that their kids don't miss out on the class trip or the team sport that they love so much. Patients who are holding off on treatment because it was too far or too expensive. Healthcare providers who worry that political games in Washington will prevent them from giving their patients medically necessary care. Women all across Maryland who fear that politicians will take away our fundamental right to make our own health care decisions. These are the stakes of this election, and it's why our work must start tonight.
I thought that piece was very good, but Andrew, I think the point you were making, and that is part of my challenge, right? I think sometimes you go so far to the other side to try to appeal to a base who's already left you. But you and Angela both touched on something that I think is so crucial to why we haven't seen as many Black women in the Senate, and that is the donor class. It is largely white and male, and who they consider to be a viable candidate. And it is the party, who the party chooses to support. There are institutions from the D-TRIP, the DSCC and the D-TRIP. It's the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee. Angela, you'll correct me if I get these wrong.
You got that.
The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. So these entities and the DNC on who they consider viable candidates can be, I think, a challenge. Incumbency is an issue. I was really rooting for Val Demings in Florida. She was running against, an incumbent and Senator Marco Rubio. That's a challenge. So it's a lack of support, a lack of funds. I don't know how we disrupt that, but you see when we do dare to disrupt it, you heard Angela Alsobrooks in her victory speech say, stories like mine don't often make it to the United States Senate. And I think it's a part doing whatever you can. If you get out there and run for something. And if you can't run, donate to something. If you can't donate, go knock on doors for something. But we can shape this democracy when we have the courage to do so.
Tiffany, I love that point. And the other thing that I love about her speech is she said, I've got 3 people that I must thank before I go any further. And that is Lottie, Dottie, and everybody.
Everybody.
I thought that was a relatable, piece in her remarks. The reason why I wanted the clip that we played of the comments she made is that you can insert any Democratic candidate running for a statewide U.S. Senate seat on the Democratic side in any state, and you're pretty much going to hear that same order. Delivery may be different. They may insert their own sort of stories, but the playbook is going to look the same. And what I would caution on that, because I think similar things happened for Val Demings in Florida, and that loss was nearly 19 points or 20 points, 21 points maybe it was. And the same electorate that, the difference between me and my opponent in that same electorate was 0.03. So there was a huge slide there. And I think part of that is that, the DSCC may have a playbook, y'all, but when you're running in your state, be in your state.
That's it.
Adopt the issues of your state. Talk about what's happening in your state, because the federal stuff, the playbook may work some places, but for us, particularly candidates of color who are not typical to many of these ballots at statewide races, we have to do it differently. We don't get afforded the luxury of the pull and play model for running these races. We have to show up, 1, as ourselves, believable, and 2, we have to run our races like our heart, sinew, nerve will dictate, not like some playbook, because I think it's been a failing strategy for us.
Even when I decided to run for Congress, I had never run for anything in my life. I had just been widowed the year before I decided to run, and I was over 50, all of those things that people say, oh, you can't do it. And I think that this moment, the fact that I'm running, the fact that there are other Black women who are running, the fact that, we have historic candidates that are stepping up at all levels, not just in the Senate, really, I hope inspires others to just do their part, whatever that is, whether it's running or running a campaign or contributing. My best friend, she said, I don't have money to give you, but I can make you pots of spaghetti and beef stew. And that's what she did for me. So I think this moment is a special one. To me personally, it is not lost on me that there are currently no Black women in the Senate. And so to be able to represent is important. And also, and probably more equally as important to me, is representing my state. That is important to me as well. So people ask, what does it feel like to make history? And I think for many of us, we're not thinking about making history. We're thinking about doing the work.
That's it.
Didn't have a choice. So she's making history, hopefully, but also she knows that she doesn't have a choice. She always is going to serve, I don't want to say 2 masters, but 2 different entities. And sometimes those are competing interests, being an elected official in a fully Black body and also having to represent the interests of your constituents that may or may not look like the community you come from. So I think it's always a profound conundrum that our folks find themselves in. And we also are stuck with campaign entities like the DSCC that don't recognize it, that don't hire consultants, that look towards doing things that represent our best interests. Andrew, you hit the nail on the head. You were able to go rogue for so long because you were not the person they picked. And by the time they picked you, you had already built your campaign on authenticity and who you actually are. And I just hope that more candidates are able to carve out that courageous lane, because we will not see a bench that continues to grow without that.
Agreed.
And having people, I also think, Angela, you being on the trail with Andrew, like she talked about her best friend, was like, I don't have money, but I can make you spaghetti.
That was so
I think having a tribe around you to do things like that. Angela, you've been that person so many
keep
times.
You honest.
Yeah. And just real people around you who aren't yes people who are going to tell you the real. So all those things matter. Andrew, I have a question for you.
I think I know where you're going.
WTF is going on at FAMU. Don't answer. We're going to take a break. But on the other side, blah, blah. I need to know
the
WTF.
Rattling.
Yes, exactly.
The haters going to hate.
No, I love y'all. I'm nervous. I'm trying to figure out why.
We love you, FAMU. We rooting for y'all. All right,
really?
Don't go anywhere, guys.
We're rooting for you.
Don't go anywhere, you guys. We got to pay some bills. On the other side, FAMU.
On behalf of the Isaac Batterson Family Trust, we want to present this university with a special gift.
Say the amount.
$237 million.
Oh, guys. All right. We got to talk about FAMU. That was the voice of a previously unknown, mysterious 30-year-old Texas hemp farmer who gifted in quotes, Florida A&M University
who
$230.
Grifted.
Who grifted. Thank you, Angela. Who grifted $237 million. But less than 1 week, that joyous applause that you heard, it turned into skepticism and questions abound about who exactly is this guy? Does he actually have this money? And whether the university sufficiently vetted the gift. Now, FAMU has paused the deal while it further assesses the donation's value from a company which really appears to have limited an amateurish online presence for an allegedly highly successful business, zero, as Angela says. There's also there's also significant reporting from a number of outlets about Garami, I believe is how you pronounce his name, who previously backed out of a $95 million pledge to Coastal Carolina University. For more on this, we turn to our resident expert and senior FAMU analyst.
Can I just say one thing
Andrew
first,
Gillum.
Andrew, before you say something remarkably intelligent?
No, please.
I just have one flag. If you go back to the picture of this man at the commencement speech, anybody that was wearing a COVID pandemic-related mask from the Dollar Tree and the mask is down here, it's not even on your nose. It's just down here, mask falling. If you can't afford to buy a new mask, sir, you ain't got $237 million to give us. Like, what are we doing? What are we even talking about?
Messages.
Nobody vetted how he's looking at the graduation. Like,
even his clothes in the pictures. But Andrew, tell us, because you're on the board, and you have breaking news. I think you found out something. So tell us,
Andrew. Please help FAMU.
Listen, I'm hurt. I'm really hurt by this.
Too.
I mean, I love my institution, and I love HBCUs.
I love
and the announcement of a gift of that size, $237 million, which, by the way, is double FAMU's current endowment. And FAMU's current endowment is probably double that of the majority of HBCUs in the country, with exceptions that we would all be able to click off, real quick. Those are the ones that always get, donations of that size. But just to put it in perspective, and I don't say this defensively, but to say that oftentimes HBCUs are not the benefactors of these size individual gifts. Typically, if you're at an HBCU, you're getting these kinds of gifts, and not of that size, by the way. But if they do come, they're coming from the government or they're coming from some corporate entity. Yeah. I mean, Angela, you must have been in my text messages, because everybody, first of all, I will say, the moment this thing came across the feed, rattlers across the nation took to the internet being like, he ain't my classmate. Who all know him? I mean, it was basically like, you might fake the handshake of the frat, but soon enough it's about to catch up with you, because somebody has to know you, right? Yeah. So nobody knows the guy as they start, making the rounds. And in short order, people start to pop up what is readily available out there about the guy, which is that he's got no footprint whatsoever. The woman he's named as the co-president of his company, goes out and does an interview and says, I've never even worked for that company. He 4 years prior to this point, this money supposedly comes from his business and a family trust and inheritance, except a GoFundMe account was set up for his mother's health illness and for his brother's funeral. Wow. A GoFundMe account that was publicly out there on the web for anybody to see. So the lack of vetting on this has flummoxed.
Well, the Board of Trustees, Gibbons had questions about it.
Yeah, the Board of Trustees, the FAMU Foundation, all of which who learned of this gift on the day of the announcement being made. And that is because he forced the university's leadership into a NDA, which I didn't even know were legal for public institutions in the state of Florida. But however, the university agreed to an NDA. And then the final executing agreement, y'all, that was made public didn't even have the man's signature on the signature line. It is obtuse, but I will tell you, because as we are recording, as we are taping, as we're speaking with each other right now, the FAMU Board of Trustees is meeting for the first time since the announcements of this gift, and their immediate skepticism about its truth. And a few moments ago, I received a text stating that the vice president and the executive director over the FAMU Foundation, which is the recipient organization, the direct support organization of FAMU, the institution who would be the recipient of this $237 million, the executive director has stepped down from that role. She is, as I know her, a very talented woman. She's also the dean of School of Business and Industry, an accomplished graduate.
There.
Herself, say that again?
She's staying there.
She's going to maintain that position, but she will leave the FAMU Foundation again, which was the sort of negotiating organization here. And just so that anybody is confused, how did we get to this number $237 million? What the guy did, this hoster did, was said he transferred what he valued as $237 million in stock of his non-publicly traded company. And because it is non-publicly traded, it actually has no value. You can't actually apply value other than the value that he says it has.
Right.
So according to experts, the value could be anywhere from 0 to 300 million.
I just don't understand how this is not criminal. How is this not criminal? Do you guys know
criminal? How do we know it's not criminal?
It seems like it's criminal. It's fraud and massive fraud. So I'm just trying to understand what we're doing here, because we're out here on the front lines of a whole case around fraud where there's a whole public battle. But this is what's going on. The one thing that I wanted to flag here is the largest gift to an HBCU in history before this gift of dust was $100 million to Spelman from Rhonda Stryker and William Johnston earlier this year.
Yeah.
$100 million. That's the largest gift in history. So he more than doubled it in dust. And embarrassed this not only stole a moment at the commencement for the 2024
he
graduates
to be the keynote.
Of course
which he was.
did. But it doesn't matter. Like there should be a robust, very a detailed background check. Looking at his assets, verifying where the actual money is in the bank before you do anything like that. I sit on a board of an HBCU. I sit on the Wilberforce board. This would not happen at Wilberforce. There are too many people who are business professionals who would be like, no, before we sign an NDA, these are the things that we have to verify. So it's just mind-blowing to me that he got this far with his little cheap-ass Dollar Tree mask on at the graduation, making a mockery of one of our best and brightest institutions. It is insanity.
Deveron Gibbons, he's the vice president of the FAMU Board of Trustees. And Angela, it sounds like he feels like you. And I do just want to say, because he has questions too. So, the questions to blame. But let's just take a listen to hear what Mr. Gibbons had to say.
I would ask, what is the valuation? Who did the valuation? What was the deep dive and background on Batterson Farms and or the donor? What obligations does the university have?
So, Angela, all the questions that you say should have been asked. At least there is somebody out there saying these who agrees with you and has a fiduciary responsibility to the university.
And Trustee Gibbons is on the FAMU Board of Trustees. Y'all should have heard the FAMU Foundation's board meeting, which was intense. And at that level, you had finance experts on FAMU's board, foundation board, who were asking questions that I I wouldn't know where to begin or end, and I served on FAMU's Board of Trustees. But I have to tell you, the university committed a huge fail. For FAMU to be the largest single campus HBCU in the United States, for us to produce more baccalaureate, magisterial, and doctoral degree holders of any institution in the country, to have been listed as the #1 college, beating out Harvard University now twice with our recruitment of National Merit Scholars, producing more of those graduates than any other institution at one time. It's extremely embarrassing, yes, but it is also deeply hurtful. And so while I definitely have to take FAMU's leadership to task, and I'll do that another way on another day, I also want to take to task what I think has to be undiagnosed or maybe diagnosed narcissist, and maybe even worse, fraudster who made a habit. Prior to us, it was Coastal Carolina University where he made several tens of $1 million gift commitment there. So, but folks out there who are shysters like this, like, where do you get off? What satisfaction do you get being demonstrated to the whole world as a fraudster, and then taking a distinguished institution and dragging it through the mud? And not because we didn't go unwillingly, because there was a lot of willing walking that took place before the dragging. It's very upsetting. And given the needs of our HBCUs around the country, not just FAM, but across the board, this is a devastating blow. And I believe that additional heads are going to have to roll here.
Yes.
Well,
indeed.
keep us posted, Andrew, because this is definitely in literally in your backyard.
Down the street.
Literally. And you are in FAMU and of FAMU in every way somebody can be. As I close this out, I do just want to point out that big philanthropy supportive HBCUs declined from 2002 to 2019. This is from an organization called Candid, who published Philanthropy in HBCUs, Foundation Funding to HBCUs. Comparatively, Ivy League schools received a combined $5.5 billion in philanthropic dollars from 2015 to 2019, compared with HBCU's $303 million. So our HBCUs
and Tiff and Angela,
don't have time to be playing
we're under
around.
assault on both sides, right? We talked about TSU earlier. So the state-sponsored schools are trying to shutter them. And then you got the private donations being down at these institutions. Don't let this serve as a reflection of the great work that is happening to produce these graduates on these HBCU campuses.
Yeah.
This was a failure at a staff level and a leadership level, and those folks have to be accountable to that. But make no mistake, y'all, if you're making a choice around attending an HBCU, you make that choice based off of the merits of the programs, its reputation of its graduates, and its degrees,
including
not
Andrew.
The folly of some individuals.
Yeah, we're coming up on time, but HBCUs produce the largest Black professionals in fields of medicine, law, engineering, and more. So HBCU strong, HBCU pride. All right, we got to take a quick break, but I got a question for Angela when we come back. Angela, I want to know, what is the latest with Marilyn Mosby? You've been all over her situation, and we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can and want to be supportive. So I want to get the latest on that. And what you've all been waiting for, my hot sports take. So we're going to pay some bills. We'll see you on the other side of this break.
Hallelujah.
This is a place where basketball matters.
Beautiful pass and a good catch and finish. Big time!
And if you love
Enrique!
real
Thomas with the spin move!
basketball,
Unforgettable finish!
welcome to the W.
All right, welcome back, everybody. I got a question. Have you all been watching the games? I've been, okay, let me just say, yes, I have. I've been super into it. So on Tuesday night, the WNBA, I watched the WNBA game, and my Knicks, because I've decided they're my team. My Knicks was facing off with the Pacers, and I was torn because these games were playing at the same time, and I have not been this torn since they put A Different World up against Martin, and I was flipping back and forth, trying to keep up. And I gotta say, I feel like a traitor because I was watching more of the Knicks game just because I had been following them, but I did watch Caitlin Clark ball on that court. I'm just into.
She got mollywopped, sis.
I know they lost, but it was her first televised game.
She got mollywopped, sis.
Okay, well, I'm glad that you pointed that out because this
20 points.
Well, Angela make a good point about her getting mollywopped. Because Angela's
look at the score.
Well, her assessment of the mollywoppification, I think, is something worth talking about. But I think Angela's point is not all about Caitlin Clark. There are other people. And head coach of the Minnesota Lynx, Cheryl Reese, has something to say about that. I'm sorry, Angela, we're playing the head coach of the Lynx. They played the Seattle Storm, and Angela's gonna tell us why she might have an issue with this soundbite. But let's hear from Cheryl Reese.
The growth is happening so fast. It's so accelerated. And I've been saying this in our own organization that business as usual isn't going to work anymore. You're going to get left behind. Certainly, Caitlin's first game, they were going to value. I'm all for that. I get it. People want to see that, but they also want to see it's not just about Caitlin, and this isn't Caitlin's fault in any way. It's more, the recognition that there's general excitement about the WNBA in ways that we haven't seen before. And so we have to capitalize, to really ensure that this is a movement. We have to capitalize on those things.
I think she's right. Angela, we missed each other. We were calling each other. What were you doing Tuesday while I was watching 2 basketball games? What were you doing?
I was at the Seattle Storm season opener. One of the 3 of us kept our promise to go to a season opener of the WNBA, and I represented on behalf of all of you because that's what family does. And so did Mama and Papa Rye. So we sat almost courtside. Courtside was actually sold out in the town, which is great. But we were a couple rows back, and we were very much so enjoying a very competitive game. And then there was a breakout moment in the fourth quarter with the Lynx, and Seattle lost by 13 points. But I am elated to welcome Nneka Ogwumike and Skylar. Why can't I think of Skylar's last name right now? Skylar.
These are players for the Seattle Storm?
I know better than this. I know Skylar, anyway, this is bad. Let me look. Skylar Diggins-Smith. I was trying to say Williams so bad, and I don't know why.
You got it. You pulled it out.
Skylar killed it. Nneka killed it. And this is their first season with the Storm, and just to watch them melding with their new team is great. We definitely miss Stewie. And all of that good stuff. And so Sue Bird is now part of the ownership group. She got a standing ovation, which was amazing. But yeah, it's I think it's gonna be a great season. And watching the melt was good. My dad is one of the people who's like, at 2 minutes left, if your team is getting mollywopped, it's like, we gotta go. Let's go. Let's beat the crowd. So I was like, damn, we can't. He's like, nah, we out.
Nah, we out of here.
So you're a Storm fan in the WNBA. Do you have a team on the NBA side?
I had a team. They were called the Seattle Supersonics, and Howard Schultz sold them to Oklahoma City Thunder, or Oklahoma City, and they became Oklahoma City Thunder to everybody else. To me, they're the Oklahoma City Thunder Cats, because I'm still mad years later.
Okay.
But yeah, I think I've always been a Lakers fan. I was a Laker girl for Halloween in the 5th grade. We can claim that. And then I just mostly like to see a good game, Tiff.
That's what I like.
Here. I know.
That is what I like.
So
I like to see a competitive game.
I'm so mad I couldn't think of Skylar's last name right there. Anyway,
you got it.
We got it.
You got a lot going on.
Skylar, charge it to my head and not my heart.
Yeah, Angela out here fighting for freedom and got all kind of causes.
Everybody.
So she and managed to go to the game. So
I do hope that we don't run away from standout players in the WNBA out of fidelity to, wanting to say, everybody contributes, everybody makes this thing work and that kind of thing. We didn't do that a lot with Magic and with Jordan. They were what they were. People appreciated what the supporting cast did in order to make those teams as great as they were. But, sometimes it takes that kind of individual to then make the attraction, make the game, more attractive. And then people start to have other kinds of favorites. But if you can get eyes on the game based off of the celebrity of 1 or 2 or 3, I say do that, and then let the team's work speak for itself.
The same thing happened in the NBA. The WNBA last year, there are 36 million total unique viewers. That was their high, and that was in 2023. It was the highest figure since 2008. It was a 27% increase. They also brought in more than $200 million in revenue as the WNBA, with a huge increase in fans. Now, the NBA, by contrast, is bringing in 1.6 million viewers across networks, but it wasn't always like that. The NBA's had a 50-year head start, and there was a time where people weren't watching, and I can tell you, I know that the Lakers were instrumental in increasing NBA viewership, and I know this because it was well documented in HBO's Winning Time, starring a very impressive ensemble cast. So I know all about the Showtime Lakers. And Jenny
now,
Buss
Magic
and Jerry
might
Buss.
disagree with you on some of that.
They don't like that.
Show.
They do not. I don't know, Angela. One day, this might be a mini pod. I want you to tell me why everybody had a problem with HBO's Winning Time, because I thought it was great. And I just want to say this real quick in case y'all know something about it. Remember we were talking about selling the TV licensing deals? Well, the Ringer podcaster, Bill Simmons, he claims that it's already done, and he thinks that NBC is getting it. So I'm just sharing that here for the licensing deals because I'm all into all aspects of these sporting games now.
I love it. You actually starting to impress me, girl.
Okay, well that's what I work for. And when football season starts, we'll have a little debrief, and then we'll figure out who my team is there. But I'm so excited to talk about sports with you guys. I love talking about this topic with you guys. I'm very excited, and shout out to the WNBA.
I will tell you, RJ in my household thought you were an expert until she heard us joking. She was like, "You mean to tell me she not?"
I am an expert, and thank you, RJ, for recognizing my skill.
Yeah, you got it.
Especially on the media side, like the news you just broke. That was
that was great.
Thank you.
You
get better than me talking about. I could not think of Skylar's last. Skylar Diggins Smith. It will never happen again, sis.
Skylar Diggins Smith. I'm gonna remember your name from now on. Just
that's true. Her memory is very good.
I got third base. I got third base.
I'm happy though, Angela, in all seriousness, that you got to take your parents to the Seattle Storm game. I feel like you've been working really hard. You need a breather, which is going to bring us to our next topic because I want to know what's the latest with Marilyn Mosby, and I want to know what you need from us and what Marilyn needs from us and how we can be the most supportive.
You know, thank you, number one, you all. You guys regularly are shouting me out, but this really was a platform that created space for us to share Marilyn's story. When a lot of people weren't listening, there are so many people out there that still believe because there was a press release that went out from DOJ or because there were negative articles in the Baltimore Banner or the Baltimore Sun or on this, this person's Twitter feed that it automatically means fact. Andrew, I know you know firsthand.
I know it too well.
That is not the case. And so I would challenge you all first as this call to action, our collective call to action, to please interrogate the facts.
Do it.
Do not take whatever headline's word for it. It does not mean it's true. Marilyn Mosby is innocent and should not be facing 40 years in prison. She is scheduled to be sentenced on May 23rd. The prosecution has requested that she serve 20 months. Imagine wasting millions of dollars of taxpayer resources to go back and not even ask for 2 years in prison. Not that we want her to serve any time in prison, but imagine the millions of dollars, your money, that was wasted over her money that she used to acquire property, her money, her retirement money, that she contributed to every other week.
Her salary that she deferred.
Yeah, right. Well, it's her retirement account. So it was pulled out of her check.
Deferred compensation is salary that she defers.
Yes,
that's the point I was making when we talked about it.
It was pulled out of her check every 2 weeks.
Absolutely. It's her money,
for some people, deferred is hard. It's her retirement account. Some people have 401ks. Some people call them deferred compensation plans. On the Hill is the thrift savings plan. Whatever you call it, it's her money that was pulled out of her check every couple of weeks for 8 years.
That's right.
And she didn't withdraw the full amount. Here's where we are now. Marilyn Mosby has filed her pardon application with the United States Department of Justice pardon attorney. Her name is Liz Oyer. Liz has the responsibility of reviewing that pardon application and submitting her recommendation to the president. Make your request known to the White House. Let them know how you feel about pardoning Marilyn Mosby. Know that a historic almost 60 lawyers signed on to Marilyn Mosby's pardon application. That never happens. It's normally one person, it's maybe a couple. Almost 60 lawyers, including Barry Scheck, Ben Crump, Bakari Sellers, so many that signed. Barbara Arnwine, like legends in the
legal field.
Yeah, in the legal field signed on to this. So Sean Chapman Holly, I can keep naming people, but thank God for all of you. Demario, so many of y'all. Yeah. And of course, Jeff Trevelyan was the lead attorney on the pardon app. I just want you all to apply pressure. If you can show up in Greenbelt, Maryland next week at 10:30 a.m. Eastern, show up. If you haven't shared the petition with your friends and family yet, send it. If you want to write a letter, if you want to send an email to the White House saying, what is taking y'all so long, do it. Just keep interrogating what happened. Look up Leo Wise. Look up Larry Hogan. We talked about Angela also Brooks earlier in this show. Larry Hogan will be her opponent. This man single-handedly tried to destroy Marilyn Mosby's legacy. He tried to take away the funding from her prosecutorial office. This man should not see another day in office in any way, shape, or form in Maryland. Look at all of these players. You will see that these are a bunch of people that were out to make an example out of a progressive Black woman prosecutor, and she is not the only one. There are other folks coming forward. You will hear about them very soon. justiceformarilynmosby.com to sign the petition, and please interrogate these facts, y'all. Do not take a headline's word for it. Even if you don't just listen to me, ask me questions, challenge what we are saying about this. But I promise you, this is a grave injustice, and we must stand up and be heard.
You know, we did Don Lemon's show, and Angela, the way that you laid it out. Shout out to Don Lemon and support.
Thank you, Don.
So thank you, Don, for having us. But the way that you laid it out on Don's show, where you talked about this is the confluence of three powerful white men: Donald Trump, Larry Hogan, and Leo Wise, who are targeting a strong, fierce Black woman who was trying to disrupt the status quo in a very unforgiving criminal justice system that disproportionately targets us. So this boomerang that's happening, I think, when we all remember that moment in American history, you cannot tell the story of America the past 20 years without telling the story of Marilyn Mosby. And when she stood on that line and said, "Our time is now," I just feel like we can't abandon her in this moment.
I cried.
People,
yeah.
Yes. And so all the people who keep, it's more
Gray.
than just liking a post, sharing a post. Hashtag activism has to go further. So for the people who, it frustrates me, and I appreciate y'all's support, but for the people who are asking, well, how do you sign a petition? Where is it? Google works wonders. You can Google Marilyn Mosby petition. You can Google Marilyn Mosby. Angela just gave the site, Justice for Marilyn Mosby. Please do as much as you can. If everybody does a little, nobody has to do a lot. Call the White House, call your representative, whatever you can do, make noise. Make this heard. May 23rd, show up. These are easy things. If you can physically be there, great. If you can't, the internet works wonders. Google works wonders. Make your voice known. Share it in your group chats. Do better than the best that you can. Do more than you thought you could. And imagine if it were you.
Act
in
like
this situation.
if it were you.
Right.
How would you like
and there
to
is
be?
no victim here. That's the important thing. Jill,
She's the victim.
She's the victim.
Well, exactly. Marilyn is the victim.
Yeah.
Exactly.
She is the victim.
Exactly.
She is the victim. All because this woman had the audacity to make true, to make real, that no person, no man, woman, child, or otherwise is above the law.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
She challenged the system that, not in words, but in practice, reserved space for some people to be above the law, especially if you had a badge. And she said, no person is. And they said, is that right? Well, let's see what we can do with you.
Yeah.
Well, I think that can serve as our collective call to action for the three of us. Angela, we continue to thank you for your work.
Absolutely, friend.
For all what we wouldn't even, a lot of people wouldn't know about this case were it not for you. And so we just want to thank you and honor you for that.
Even the petition is by Native Land Pod. And I just want y'all to know, you don't have an excuse to be silent, because even my stomach is hollering throughout all this podcast. I don't know if you all have heard it the entire time. It's like barking like a dog.
I'm starving. I'm going to eat.
But I don't even have an excuse. I had an acai bowl. I don't know what's going on.
I don't
your metabolism is
good.
You had an acai bowl. You need some
good.
Need
your metabolism is working.
Sorry,
I'm going to eat as soon as we're done.
Okay.
All right.
Well, hey, Tiff, on a lighter note.
Yes.
Happy birthday to my son, Davis. He turned 7.
Happy birthday, nephew.
He turned 7 today.
That's boss baby.
Belated to RJ, whose birthday was last week, and this upcoming Sunday. Jay will graduate with her MBA from American University. Washington. Lord Jesus.
GW, George Washington
University. And my twins will turn 10 double digits on Sunday. So
that is amazing.
So Jay and I are having
to my nephews and my
cocktails.
niece.
It'll be birthday cocktails, congratulations cocktails, and Andrew's not invited.
I wasn't invited.
And
so I've been keeping the kids.
I love you, Jay. Jay, you are a rock. We love you. You're a rock and a rock star. And to all the babies, I love these babies. Caroline,
every great man is a great one.
Caroline, call me if they try to give you any more allergy medicine. Never again on my watch. I got you, honey.
Worst wonders, baby.
Andrew's kids are
He's
adorable.
not drugging his kids, y'all. It just that baby had an allergic
an inside
outbreak.
Joke.
I didn't like
Andrew
it.
and Angela knows that.
I don't like it. I don't want her on Benadryl.
Welcome home, y'all.
Welcome home, y'all. Before we end the show, I do want to remind everyone to leave us a review and subscribe to Native Land Pod. When you do that, it really does help elevate the platform, share the platform. If you like what we do here, share our content, tell your friends, subscribe, download, all the things. We're available on all platforms and YouTube. Our audio drops first, YouTube drops next. So show us love wherever you can. You can listen first and then watch later if you like. We take you in all forms. New episodes drop every Thursday. You can follow us on social media. We are Tiffany Cross, Angela Ryan, Andrew Gillum. Welcome home, y'all. There are 172 days until Election Day.
Thank you for joining the natives. Intentional with the info on all of the latest. Rod, Gillum, and Cross connected to the statements that you leave on our socials. Thank you sincerely for the patience. Reason for your choice is clear. We're so grateful. Took the oath to execute roles. Yeah, faithful. Preserve, defend, and protect the truth, even if painful. Welcome home to all of the natives. We thank you.
Welcome home, y'all.
What's
Welcome
up,
home.
sis?
Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reason Choice Media. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.